Hey guys, I have the Flash movie action figures for you today, and we're going to be doing a little review. But unlike our other reviews, I'm also going to be going into some detail about what we might be seeing in the movie, since this is going to be the first time that DC has actually taken a story from the comic books and adapted it into the film. Most of their previous movies have all been more or less original ideas, so we might actually see some hints in what's to come based on the trailers and the figures and the source material of the comic book that they're taking it from. So stick around and we're going to get right into it. All right, here are our boxes. That's the first side. That's the other side. Here's the front side of Keaton Batman, Affleck Batman, and then Supergirl. Here is the back side of each of those same characters. Here we have both Flashes and then Dark Flash. And here's the back of those same boxes. And now let's go ahead and get right into the figures. So first up, we have Supergirl, and we're gonna look at the card first. Same art that we saw on the back of the box. Here is a quick description. Other than that, she comes with a nice flight stand, of which only a handful of McFarlane figures actually do come with. So Supergirl comes with two alternate hands. One is a left fist because she already has a right fist, and then the other one is a right open hand because she also has a left open hand. And that's really it for accessories. As far as the actual figure goes, it looks reasonably good to what we see on screen, except for the face. I don't think it's as good of a likeness as we've seen with some of the other sculpts that McFarlane has done. McFarlane doesn't make a lot of female figures, so it's always interesting to see what he comes up with when he does make them. But as far as accuracy to what we see on screen, I think we do see her symbol for a second, and if I can get a screenshot, I'll show it on screen now. But there's really not a whole lot else that we can see, since in the trailers, everything's kind of moving pretty fast. Here's a close-up of Supergirl. Not a great likeness of the actress, but that's how it looks. At least it's a pretty good paint job with the eyes. You can see they did eyeliner around there. You got the iris in there. It looks really good in that perspective. But what we have over here is the Superman from the Flashpoint story, which the movie is based on. So instead of using Superman in the Flash movie, they're using Supergirl instead. And this is how he appears in the comic books. I don't really feel like this is as accurate as it should be. If you look at it, this is taken directly from the comic book, and you can see how thin he is. So clearly this one is much thinner than a typical Superman, but not as thin as this. This one, the idea is supposed to be he's malnourished and doesn't, go outside, doesn't eat, all that kind of stuff. And this one still looks rather muscular. Otherwise, the design of the costume is pretty spot on, but even the face, I feel like the face might even still be kind of too heroic or too, I don't know, not malnourished looking enough, not frightened, scared. It's supposed to be a Superman that we do not recognize. That was the whole point of his role in the comic book. So this Superman got scrapped from the storyline when they adapted it for the movie, and now we just have Supergirl. And for the sake of comparison, here is the McFarlane Superman, Henry Cavill, next to our Supergirl. You can see that it's a very, very different blue on the two. The red is different too, but not nearly as different as the blue is. I think I like this red and blue better than this red and blue. I like the way it pops. This one is definitely much more Zack Snyder-ish. But if you're hoping to get her to go with him, then this is how they look. Next up, we have Ezra Miller as the Flash. And so this is the main Flash costume that he wears as far as we can see in the trailer. Here is the back. As far as accessories go, he does come with these 4 lightning effects. It's not super clear how they attach, other than they probably wrap around in some kind of way, but no obvious pegs or spaces for arms or anything like that. So those are okay. And then here he is himself. I think from what we've seen in the trailers, it's a pretty good likeness to the costume. Here's a close-up of our main Flash from the film. It looks kind of like Ezra Miller, but not that much either, so that's all right. Otherwise, we have a pretty typical articulation all around. There's nothing really unique in terms of articulation, and nothing that should prevent it from articulating in most typical ways. But the things that are interesting are how it compares to the original. So here is the original appearance of the Flash, and here is the newer one. So the original one appears bigger, bulkier. This one definitely seems much, much slimmer. At the same time, I think The kneecaps actually appear to be a little bit higher, and even the waist seems to be a little bit higher. So it's got longer legs, even though the torso is shorter, so this one still comes out to be a little bit taller. If anything, I would say this one actually has better proportions than this one does. This one seems a little off in that regard. Here he is next to our comic book Flash. So this is actually Rebirth Flash, which is how he would appear after the Flashpoint storyline. McFarlane is releasing a more classic Flash appearance, which I'll put up the preview up on screen here. But otherwise, this is how they compare. Again, I think the proportions on this are a little bit more realistic than this. This one has really long legs and kind of a short torso, which gives it a very strange appearance. And next up is our other Flash from the film. Here's the card, same art as we see on the box. And here's the back, which is very telling of what happens in the movie. So we do know that this Flash that we're seeing here is definitely not the regular Flash that we see in Justice League. This is the alternate world Barry Allen. And I think that's sort of the point of the costume too, because if you can't tell, and if you've not already seen it, the costume is a Batman costume, which has been modified heavily to look like a Flash costume. And what's interesting about this is that this is actually not the Batman costume that we see in the movie. This is actually more reminiscent to the Batman Returns costume, which is evident based on the ab design of the armor there. Because in the Batman 1989 film, the abs look more like regular abs, and then in the Batman Returns film, it looks more like this with these straight lines kind of all over. Otherwise, based on what we have seen in the trailer, it does look pretty close. We haven't seen everything though. One thing I didn't notice in the trailer is that the lightning bolts that are normally there for the Flash are actually the headphones of our alternate Barry Allen. Our boots are definitely still the Batman boots as well. Everything is just painted. So that's a super fun idea, and I'm excited to see that on screen. Here's a close-up of our alternate Barry Allen. The head looks weird, but I think the head in the trailer also looks weird, so they captured that pretty well. Because of how much that the mask covers up, I can't really give a fair assessment of how accurate it looks to the actor. Also kind of weird is that the head is all one piece like that, but also kind of fair too, because in Batman and Batman Returns, he can't actually turn his head. He has to move in order to see. So that's fine. For accessories, all we have are lightning accessories, which we have seen before. We've seen them with the Justice League movie Flash and with a few other speedster characters. So nothing real special there. Here are our two movie Flashes together. You can see that this one actually still looks a little bit bigger than this one. And not only that, but this one is actually just a little bit taller than this one. The legs are approximately the same height, but the torso on our alternate Barry is actually a little bit longer, which makes it look just that much more normal compared to this one. I thought maybe the diapers maybe a little bit too high up, which caused the torso to look shorter, but when I started doing that, you started getting these gaps, so I think the diaper is kind of already in the correct position, and the torso really is just super short, so that's really weirding me out. One real weird thing about this one is even though it does come with the stand, it's actually different from the other stands. I don't know how well that comes off, but this one is a little bit more matte than this one is. And there actually is a difference in the peg sizing. So I tried putting this one on this one, and it wouldn't fit quite right, but it fit just fine on this one. So I have no idea why McFarlane has different size holes, but he does. So that's weird. And here we have Dark Flash. So same art as the back. Here's the back of the card. And I don't think we've actually even seen him in the trailer yet. However, I think we do get a teaser of him in the trailer, which I'll show up on screen right now. And my theory, and the reason why he is here, is that I think he becomes him. If you've read the Flashpoint comic book, then you know that Barry realizes that he is the one that caused the world being so different in the first place, and eventually opts to go back in time to reverse what he had already undone.
I have to undo what I did.
And I suspect in the film we will see our alternate Barry not wanting that to happen, wanting to keep his life as it is, and then becoming corrupted and becoming the Dark Flash. If I'm right, then great. If not, then that's okay. We can't really know how accurate or not this is to what we'll see in the film, but you can see there's a lot of just kind of crazy stuff going on here. There's no smooth parts at all. And if anything, as far as story goes, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like him being combined with some kind of Doomsday-ish like thing happening that we saw in Batman vs Superman when they created Doomsday, which could explain this really, weird spiky appearance. They might be calling it Dark Flash. It might actually end up being Reverse Flash. There is a Black Flash that McFarlane has released. I unfortunately don't have that yet. Here we have Dark Flash next to both of our Flashes from the film. These two appear to be approximately the same height, but this one does still seem to be just a little bit taller. And while we're talking about villains, I do want to bring up our Aquaman from the Flashpoint timeline. So this Aquaman is definitely a bad guy in the Flashpoint timeline. He is fighting Wonder Woman. They're at war with each other, which has killed millions of people. That's a pretty major plot line in the Flashpoint story in both the comic and the animated movie. And I suspect that they're replacing that major war with the whole Zod piece that we've seen in the trailers. But really their fight and the Zod thing, I think, is really just a distraction for who the main villain actually is, and in our case is Dark Flash. But again, I think that's actually our alternate Barry Allen. This Aquaman is a cool figure. The original design is pretty neat. I do like the gold line going down the side, and I do like the Aquaman logo on the shoulder. Pretty neat. All right, so here's Affleck Batman. Here's the card, same art as the back of the box. Here's the back of the card. He only comes with alternate hands. Thankfully, they are fists, and then his hands are gripping hands. Although, again, they didn't come with anything else, so there's not really a lot to grip, so you'd have to come up with something. The suit itself does look pretty close to what we've seen in the trailer so far. Affleck Batman close-up, hard to see the eyes. They are painted, which I like that idea. I think it is cool that the eyes are like that, but otherwise doesn't really look like Ben Affleck. And then otherwise, what's kind of neat is that even though, it is Batman and it is a dark costume, there's actually quite a few colors that we see on here. So the cowl is kind of this gunmetal gray, and then the chest piece is its own kind of black, and then we got more gray here, and then the belt is almost kind of a dark green. So this is just another kind of tactical suit for Batman. And if you couldn't already tell, the cape is very unlike any other McFarlane released cape before. It's just a regular cloth cape, and if you didn't know, that's because this is designed to fit inside of the Batmobile. And I'll have a separate video showing all the different Batmans that can fit inside the Batmobile, so subscribe if you haven't. And otherwise, here's the other Affleck Batman. So obviously this one is the one from Justice League, and then the one on the right is the Flash movie one. So obviously very, very different designs, but you can see that it's got basically the same kind of bulk that the Affleck Batman has. So that's nice to see, and that's how they would fit together. Last but not least, we have Michael Keaton Batman. Here is his card, same art as the back of the box. Again, here's the back of the card. As far as accessories, we do get these alternate fists because his hands are both gripping hands. And he'd be gripping either the grappling gun, which looks pretty spot on other than possibly the color. I mean, maybe in the movie it is silver, but we do know that in the original film it was black. And then otherwise, the alternate accessory is the Batarang. And this one is pretty spot on as well in terms of original design. And for the sake of comparison, here is a Batarang from NECA, and here's our McFarlane Batarang. So good job there. As far as accuracy, this does look pretty good to what we see in the trailers. We do have a few still shots of him, but this is not supposed to be an exact replica of the 1989 film costume. This is more of an updated version of that costume. The boots do look like the same boots as we have on the 1989 version of the costume, but what's weird is this paint, which is green. I don't totally get that. I mean, I guess his boots might be dirty, but maybe it'll make more sense once the film comes out. And a lot of people will notice that the major difference is that the belt on this guy is black as opposed to yellow. There is a Target exclusive version of this figure that is unmasked, so it just has the civilian Bruce Wayne head on it. Close-up of Michael Keaton Batman, and I would say this doesn't really look that much like him, but that's sort of the point of the Batman mask. However, Michael Keaton does have very distinctive lips, and if you look at the NECA version or the Mezco version, they actually do look quite a lot like Michael Keaton. And then the Target exclusive version, which I don't have, but I can put a picture up right here, also really doesn't look that much like him, but there you go. And the reason why I have this Batman out, this is Flashpoint Batman. If you're not aware, Flashpoint Batman is actually Thomas Wayne, not Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne dies instead, and Thomas becomes Batman. In the film, it does appear that Michael Keaton Batman is taking the place of Thomas Wayne Batman, because throughout the story, the Batman travels with the Flash to help him gather allies and to help him go back in time to fix what's wrong, and that's what we see in the trailers. While I doubt they will be keeping a lot of the other crazy stuff that happens with this Batman, I just wanted to show that he's kind of taken his role. Here is the Mezco Batman next to our McFarlane The Flash movie Batman. You can see a very obvious height difference between the two. The costumes are obviously very different as well. If you are wanting to get this one to try to kind of turn into that one, you kind of can if you paint the belt yellow, but otherwise this costume is still fairly different from that one. But honestly, that might be the cheapest way for a lot of people to get that Batman, so I'm not gonna knock it if that's what you're doing. Otherwise, if you want to see more comparisons of this Batman with more, then I've got a video coming out soon for that, so subscribe if you haven't yet. An interesting note about these two Batman is that they both have the cloth cape, and like I said with this one already, the point is to be able to get them to sit properly so that they fit inside the McFarlane Batmobile. But what's kind of interesting is that our Keaton Batman has a much bigger cape. So Affleck's stops right there, but Keaton's comes out this far out like we see in the original Batman films. And that's our complete Flash movie wave, besides the Target exclusive. But if you did like this video and you found it helpful, then you might actually like my Dark Knight trilogy video that I did over here.